3, 2, 1, go.
So, Chris, what are we talking about?
No.
No? You're going to ask me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm leaving all of this in. So, Katie.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about managing expectations.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd be fun to give you some, I hate to say this, common scenarios for which happen on a near daily basis.
Yeah. Regular basis for sure.
And I want to see how you deal with this.
Oh my God.
So, are you ready?
Feels like a lot of pressure, but okay. You're going to tell us how you deal with it too?
No. I mean, I might interject here and there about what I would do. Or actually, let me rephrase this. I will interject about how you're doing it wrong.
Of course. So,
I mean,
okay.
it's helpful that I'm older
about
than
right.
you. So, yeah, it's just helpful that I'm older than you. So,
oh my gosh.
So, Katie, we have this project that is way behind and we need you to deliver it. Go.
It's way behind. Why is it behind?
I don't know.
Who's telling me this, first of all?
People, it doesn't matter who's telling you this. You can make up.
It sure does, because if sales comes to me and says this, then the way I manage that is
already managing expectations.
Yeah.
You're telling me. Oh, okay. So we're at step one. Consider the source.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
no.
It absolutely matters in my eyes, right? Because I have to, any product person on a regular basis has to prioritize what's coming in. So there's a hierarchy.
But we've already committed to this project and it is behind.
Who committed? No, I'm just kidding. It
doesn't matter. We committed. There we go.
That's committed to this project.
We committed. Yes. The royal we committed.
You and the mouse in your pocket. Yeah.
Right. We committed and it's behind and we need your help fixing it because we're lost.
Okay. So
we don't know why it's working.
If engineering is telling me that, that's a problem. But if that's coming from somebody else, I mean, there could be so many reasons that happens. Let's just say, well, here's what I would do. I would say, okay, whoever's telling me this, let's get to the bottom of why it's not working, what's not working, how far behind are we? Because you should know as a product person.
Well, we don't know any of that.
Currently. Why?
Like, we have no...
No, I know, but I'm just saying, if you're in the middle of a project...
I mean, but I mean, yes, that's... I think that's all true. I think...
So this is where you're telling me I do it wrong. But
No. I mean, kind of. So
I would have to get to the bottom of it. Like, why are we behind? What's the issue? And then once I have the context of the problem, then I would understand whose expectations do I need to manage. Probably the executive leadership team. And how do I deliver that information to them so they feel comfortable about where we are and how we get to where we need to get to? I mean, that's very high level, but that's where my head goes first.
I think I used to fight fight may be too strong word. I used to get into the questions of behind, right? And now I kind of don't bother with that anymore. Like, the perception is it's behind. It doesn't kind of matter what I think.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. And so for me, like, step one is, where are we?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like what not why are we behind, but where are we? Like where are
Yeah,
we?
I mean, to
Like
me, that's the same thing, right? Like, what's the context?
yeah, I mean maybe it's just
Why are
said a
we
little bit
behind?
differently.
Sure.
Uh I feel like that's accused. Like I feel like at least for me, anyways, I've softened the approach. I think I would have asked that early on. Like, why are we behind? We're not behind. Why are we behind? Um,
Who said we were
but
behind? No, that's who I would go for.
it, I don't. It doesn't like
I'm
at that
just
point when
kidding.
it's when they're in your cube telling you we need your help because we're behind. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so just like where are we? Like
Mm.
get to the truth, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like, well, I feel we're behind. We're not actually behind.
Oh, I love that. I love
You know what
that.
I mean? Like, no, they don't. No, it doesn't say. They don't come to you and say, "I feel we're behind." No. It's
No.
we're behind, and
Yes.
it's like, no, we're
Are
not,
we actually?
because this is where we are, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's because typically it's like this game of telephone, right? And it's typically
Mhm.
when communication is not flowing well,
Mhm.
or it's we're behind based on where I think we should be.
Oh
Okay, are we
gosh.
behind? Right, like there's all of that stuff, and to me it's
Mhm.
like, well, let's get to the truth, and the truth is where we are.
Mhm.
Doesn't
Mhm.
matter, like I'm not where I want to be. Well, where are we? Right, you get
Yeah.
stranded in, pick a country, pick a state, right?
Mhm.
And I want to be in this other place. How do I get from there to here? From here to there, right? And that's
Yeah.
most of the time I just kind of accept the reality. I used to fight the perception. Like I used to fight a lot of perception.
Mm.
Like what I know not to be the truth, right? But it's people's perceived perception. And it kind of like it doesn't set up the people don't feel heard, I guess, when I'm like, no, that's not what's going on. Right. They just don't feel heard. And so now it's just
Yeah.
like it kind of doesn't matter what I think.
Mhm.
What matters is what they're perceiving, and so trying to get underneath, right? It to me is part of managing expectation, right? That
Mhm.
perception is coloring the expectation. I need to understand that,
Yeah.
and then we need to come with what the truth is, right? And be ruthless
Mhm.
about the truth, not like, oh well, you know, it's not the good spin, it's the spin,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
And
it doesn't
so
always have
it's
to be. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. It doesn't always have
well,
to
no, because
be.
then it's a
It's not always
dispassionate
bad news,
conversation.
I guess.
It's not, most of the time, I would say it's. I mean, that goes to a different type of managing expectation. If there is
Yeah.
bad news, it needs to be said early and often, right?
Mhm.
Because if you don't, that stuff just travels way quickly, and then it becomes a bigger thing,
Yeah.
and then you're having a different discussion. Why didn't you tell
Yeah.
me? I thought I could fix it, but we could have helped you, and like all those kind of conversations.
Mm. Mhm.
So, like to me, it's just like, where are we? And then put that down in very simple terms. Here's where we are, right? And as you're going through, here's where you are. You're trying to ascertain where does everybody think we should be, right? Because you're
Yes.
trying to understand where the gap and the disconnect is, right?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, it's the same thing. I just don't. I don't know. I don't challenge the we're not behind. Okay, are we?
Yeah. I think
Like
for me it
appreciative
depends on who it
inquiry, I
is.
guess. I think I do it with everybody. Like I
Yeah.
just like it because it basically in my mind it puts me on their side. Oh, okay. You're accepting their reality. I'm yes anding
Mhm.
you. Yes, and here's what
Yes.
we can do, right? Like
Yeah.
so you're
Yeah.
building on it. You're not like no way, right? Like that's a load of crap. No, it's like, you know what I mean? I mean, there is a time and place for that after you've done all that work and they keep saying it,
Mhm.
right? To
Mhm.
hold them accountable. But I mean, when somebody shows up and they really need your help, it's like, yeah, okay, all right, let's see
Yeah,
where
I
we
guess
are.
from the product perspective, I mean, you probably experience this on engineering too, but like I feel like that's a common refrain from
What?
sales. I guess so that's why I feel. Nah, I guess that is the way. That's why I feel the way I feel about who's actually telling me that we're behind. So,
Yeah, I
um,
mean, for me, it never comes from sales, right? I mean, I don't know if that's true. For me, it's always like
You don't have that one salesperson who has like a direct line to one of your engineers. Have you never been in that situation before? Oh my gosh, no?
I don't think I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm
Oh
sure
my
it's
gosh.
happened, but like,
Yeah.
where
You probably don't
again,
have visibility into it. Because then
no,
they
I
come
mean,
to,
like, no, certainly it's definitely like, okay, so it's definitely happened where somebody's told somebody to go do something and somebody's trying to be helpful and they go do it, and I'm like, why did you do that? Right?
no.
That definitely has happened, right? But
Hmm.
not on a we've committed, sure. I mean, again, it's I had a buddy of mine. He used to tell me, "You're the finance guy, right? The sales guy sells you the car. The salesperson sells you the car, right?
Hmm.
And then I get to tell you how much it's actually going to cost. And there's always a disconnect there, right? So I
Yes.
wouldn't say it's sales per se, right? And definitely people try to add features, right? But this is where you get
Hmm.
pretty ruthless about what did we commit to, right? Because no one cares if I built this other thing and that wasn't what we agreed to, right? And that's where the waste comes in, right? Like, and that's why you
Hmm.
need to be ruthless about prioritization, which we talked about last season,
Hmm.
right? If you don't understand what's going on, right, in order to manage the expectations, right, then it becomes a problem. And if it's my job to manage everybody's expectations, it's my job to understand where we are, what we're doing, and why we're doing it. And it may seem a
Hmm.
little overbearing, but in the scenario where you're already behind and they're coming to you, like, I don't want to say there's no choice. You need to create the breathing room, which means you need to
Yeah.
align everybody to these things to create the breathing room. And you need to show that you're making commitments and keeping those commitments, right?
Yeah. You're building trust.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And so the more you do that, right? So you get a bit of leeway in those situations, right? Because you're being especially typically if it's not your thing, you're getting a little bit of leeway on, hey, um we need your help, right? So you have this little bit there's a little bit of a force field for a period of time,
Sure.
and you get in that force field, right? And you basically you tell truth to power because they're kind of expecting that anyways,
Hmm.
right? And then give them the path,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
you do everything you can to keep your commitments. I mean, like, sometimes it happens where you can't and you have to go, look, this is what happened. I find that when that's true with people, most people are understanding of that situation.
Yes.
Oh, I made a mistake here. Or, oh, we didn't think about this and we needed to add it. Right. Well, is it possible? And I mean, you have to be solution oriented. I kind of hate
Yeah.
that, but, like, you know what I mean? You have to be, because it's used as like this, you're not solution oriented. And that's not what I mean. It's like,
Yeah.
if there's a problem, and especially when it comes to managing expectations, here's the problem. Here's what we're doing to address it. Here are
Hmm.
options. This is what I think we should do, good, better, best, right? Or if you don't really know, here's the challenge we're having and here's what we need to think about, right? And I think,
Yeah.
again, it's about building trust and manage the expectations. If you don't have the trust,
Yeah.
you can't manage the expectations, right?
Yeah.
um
That's really hard. And I,
and
what, go ahead.
I mean, I've been in situations where we've been weeks away from launching with literally no code.
Mm.
And so, like, what do you do? Right.
Hmm.
And I think it's, well, okay, so, you're just there to help. And I think it
Yeah.
doesn't, previous in my life, I probably would have been like just knocking things over, not figuratively, not literally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You just come in and you start like doing all the things. And I think
Hmm.
it doesn't help because generally the people in that situation know they're behind, right? Like they know they're not meeting a
Yeah.
expectation, or perceived or real, right? And I
Sure.
think it just doesn't help. So,
Yeah. I
you know,
think a lot of this, what I'm thinking about as you're talking about this is um thinking about our conversation around alignment that we had last season. um I think alignment helps with managing expectations. It doesn't mean you're never not late, right? Or any of that. It doesn't mean these things don't happen. But alignment helps in a situation like this. Um, and
yeah, I
I
find it
think,
happens. I find it
go
happens
ahead.
because there is an alignment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Most
So
of the time,
that's what
it's just that. Yeah. Oh, is that what you were saying?
yeah.
Should we cut this
That's what
part out?
no, no, but that's what I'm saying. And I think from the product perspective, um, you know, our job is, um, what did they say? Managing by influence or whatever it is, right? Like you've got to be, if you don't know coming in how to manage expectations, you'll learn pretty quick that you have to do it. And then it becomes something that's, I mean, second nature from in my opinion for a
I
product
mean,
person.
I can't think of any conversation where I have in my day to day where you're not managing some level of expectation.
Right.
Either
Right.
your commitment, right? Your commitment to get something done, your team's
Mhm.
commitment to get something done. Like I just feel like you're doing it. And I think it's important, right, to kind of process that in a way that, I guess it really comes down to, if you say something, be sure you intend to keep it, right?
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
and
I
honor your
mean,
commitments. At the end of the day, that's
yeah.
really what it is,
Yeah.
right? And be honest, and I think it's hard for people to be like, oh crap, we're behind, or oh crap, we missed something. There's always a miss
Mhm.
on every project.
Yeah.
Always. Like I
Yeah.
can't think of one thing where there's not a miss. Happened to me today. Oh crap, we got to go do that. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right. But I just learned about it, right? Like so why didn't we know? It
Mhm.
didn't occur to us, I made an assumption, blah 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 blah. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought maybe we had it. I didn't validate that, right? And this happens when you're putting together a plan, you don't have the full purview, or don't have a complete understanding of whatever the situation is, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah. But you can be sure that I'm having a conversation relatively quickly about, oh crap, we've got to add all this stuff, and here's what the impact is. Like the problem is they hear, oh, we missed something, right? And then they think, oh my god, this is going to be like 500 bajillion years to solve, and it's like, we missed something. So the conversation goes two ways. Did we just miss something, and it's like a simple kind of like, here's like 2 or 3 days of work we got to go do? Or is it like, when you go into that conversation, it's got to be, we missed it, and either we're working on getting a true answer by a certain time, or we have the answer and here's what the answer is, right? You don't have to have the answer. You have to have a beat on when you're going to know the answer,
Yeah.
at the very
Yes.
least, right?
Absolutely.
Because then it's like, and you can give them a little bit of color, like, I don't think this is going to be huge, but we got to see, right? And so that kind of
Mhm.
tamps down this kind of initial response of, the sky is falling, right? In my opinion.
So in some of these situations, it's been my experience that mm, that when we're behind, okay, so when we get the message that we're behind, however we're behind, um that can create additional tension between product and engineering. And what I've found is, yeah, they want an answer from product, but really nobody wants to hear from product. They just want to hear from engineering. And that's, I can say it's a tough place to be sometimes. And
They just
that, to your
bypass you.
point earlier, oh,
They just
absolutely.
bypass you. Oh no,
Yeah,
I never like I never no, I never like maybe it's because of when I get called in, right, or the
yeah,
situation,
yeah,
but like I always like my first stop, I guess maybe because it's generally senior leadership positions is with product.
it should be. It
Right.
should be.
Like I
Yeah.
that like the so I think the important thing is it's not me reporting the state of the state. It's
Mm-hmm.
me helping ascertain the state of the state, because typically
Right.
in those situations sometimes there's products understanding and engineering's understanding, and now that's out of alignment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden we're trying to get there, and right, what happens is well, the people doing the work, right, and I'll use that word loosely here, the actual hands-on
Mm-hmm.
keyboard building the feature think is more truthful, but isn't necessarily being filtered in the right way, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the answer you'll get from engineering typically is this is what it's going to take me, and then that becomes gospel. And then
Yes.
I mean, this is the whole reason for the podcast, right? All these other things that don't have all these other things that are supposed to happen that aren't accounted for, that the
Yep.
business actually wants, right? And
Yep.
now we're out of alignment again because you said it was going to be 3 days. Why are we not done, Katie? And then they come to you and it's
Yep.
like, why are we not done? And you're like, well,
Exactly.
what about all the GTM stuff we got to do? Well, no one told us about that. Exactly. Right. So like to me, like if I were to do that today, right? If I were sitting in a company and I got that today, I'm having a long discussion with product. What do you believe? I'm having a long discussion with engineering, right? Separate, because you want to hear the
Yes. Yeah.
quote unquote truth. Then
Mm-hmm.
together, like
Mm-hmm.
you said this, why is this not happening? Right.
Yeah.
And then the readout, because inevitably you get a short timeline to, well, what's
Yes.
wrong, right? Because
Yeah,
that's usually
exactly.
the question,
Mm-hmm.
needs to come from products supported by me and engineering, right?
It
Those three people need to be in
should.
the room. And what's the story we're going to tell people? Now, I may help craft the message or blah, 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 blah.
No.
But at the end of the day, the people that are there need to be front and center because they know, right? Like, typically people know, right? Like the product manager, the engineers know that's the situation and they're not super happy about that situation,
Yeah.
right? And I think you have to help position them for the success, right? Because most of the time
Yeah.
it's not their fault, right?
Yeah.
It's just not. It's just like,
It's not usually anyone's fault.
yeah,
Any particular person.
yeah. I think it's not.
Or are you saying like
I mean, we can.
organization?
I think. I mean, it's. I mean, something happened, we're behind, so there's an
Yeah.
expectation floating around of something going to be done.
Mm-hmm.
um I think it's the people that should be held accountable are generally not the people, the people that are responsible, I guess is my point. It can't not be anybody's fault, right? I
Yeah.
just don't like, if it's nobody's fault, if it's everybody's fault, it's somebody's fault kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just don't, I do believe somebody has to be accountable, right?
Yeah. I mean, somebody should be. Um, I think the other part of what you were just talking about from the product perspective is being feeling like you're responsible, which you are, for your product, and what is happening. Um, and sometimes, most times, being bypassed that way and having no control over that outcome. It's so disempowering. And it doesn't happen everywhere, but it does happen at some places. But it's a normal thing, right? So I think one of the things I was going to say earlier is that I think that's where building trust with partners in engineering can help create a positive front um, between product and engineering to leadership, and can help you manage expectations. Um, I've been in places where there hasn't been trust between the organizations, and I'm kind of sitting out here, maybe as a third party and seeing it happen. Um, Again, that's an alignment issue, but there's also no trust built between product and engineering. So I you're going to get behind. Everybody's going to get behind. Projects aren't going to be on time. But I think there's a lot of things that you can do to head off how it's dealt with, how it's perceived. Obviously, managing
Yeah, I
expectations
think you
is
have
part of that,
to.
right?
I think if I'm, if I'm starting a project, or if I'm starting this from scratch, right? It's early and often
Mm-hmm.
communication about where we are,
Yep.
what we're doing, the blockers that we're having. Like, it's unreasonable to think that every project is delivered on time and on budget every single time. No.
Yeah. No.
Most of the time it's ill defined anyway. So like you're
Mm-hmm.
discovering this as you're trying to get there. And I think where it goes sideways is where the communication is not great, right? And engineering tends to retract from that, especially if they're not being listened to. And now that's where the trust gets absolutely obliterated.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really hard to come back, right? You use a lot of capital, right? And that's when they inject a third party into it, right? Like use a lot of my capital, my personal capital that I've had to
Mm-hmm.
help repair a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that means holding both because right, it's like product will be like, well, engineering's not delivering what they said they were going to do, and engineering will be like, well, I didn't get what I needed in order to deliver it, and now you're playing this. I know you've had that discussion.
Oh my
um
gosh.
yeah, and
I
it's
mean, I
like,
left
well,
a
we
job
didn't
because of this.
know. Huh?
I said I
You
left a
left the job
job
because
because I mean, the I had I had zero. I was in the negative with engineering by the time I left, of none of my own doing, right? But what I couldn't control, I could only influence. But man, that was a really hard place to be.
no.
And
So
embarrassing too.
I'm gonna
But
get. I'm gonna after this. We're gonna tackle another one that is my favorite.
okay.
So so Katie, I'm gonna give you another scenario.
Yeah.
Last one.
Okay.
We need you to launch this product. We think it's gonna take about 4 months to build.
I have zero poker face, first of all. um I would try to understand where that information is from, why this is the
It's
belief,
important
right?
to the it's important to the business that this gets done in 4 months.
Okay. Well, um I would still try to
Have you
understand
ever
why.
heard that? Have you ever heard those statements said to
Oh
you?
my god, yes. At the same company I quit. Yes. And we did it. But it throws everything off, right? I mean, those types of projects are really disruptive to everyday productivity. So, yes, I've done it at the expense of, and was it worth it? Lots of people still laugh at me for that. No, it wasn't worth it, right? But um anyways, so I would try to understand, why is it important to the business? Because I'm going to have to go and relay this to my partners in engineering, and my partners in design and everywhere else, that hey, we have this thing that we apparently have to launch in 4 months. And here's what I know about it and what's doable. So I think that just becomes a conversation of, well, it is a situation of managing expectations of leadership and helping them understand, like, okay, this is what you've asked for, this is what we think we can believe, we believe we can get done, and we can, we can start now or whenever, and we'll have to continually communicate about that. I mean, if it comes in this way, usually it's a top priority for somebody in leadership. So it gets the recognition that it needs in regular meetings. But if it doesn't, it's something that you're going to have to impress upon leadership regularly. So that's how I would approach that. And then I think, I don't want to say the word or use MVP, but like, you've got to figure out what's actually doable. And that's what you have to impress upon leadership. Um, or I mean, then maybe you need more resources, or maybe you need whatever it is. Um, you've got to figure out how to do it, if it's doable, and how to do it. That's
Yeah, I
where I
think
would go.
that's right. I
So
mean, I feel like that's right. Um,
there's an asterisk next to that.
no, I'm just thinking through. Like, I was thinking through. It gets super tricky when there's an opinion about how it should be done.
Oh, of course, but
Yeah, right. Like, it's like, hey, and we want to use this thing that you don't know about, and I'm like, oh, cool,
oh
right?
yeah,
And so,
yes.
so
So you have
I
to
think the
learn really
way.
quickly how to use it. Yeah.
Actually, I quite honestly, I push back on that. Like, I'm not. You're asking me to do something that's already insano. Yeah, we're not doing that, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because I could say that in my old age, but like,
Mhm.
um, this goes. I will say largely this behavior, which has been prominent, I think, throughout my career, um, is largely why I pivot away from how to outcome.
Yes.
Right, because
Yes.
it's I there are many ways to get from point A to point B,
Yep.
and I don't if you're asking me to do something that is already difficult, I get to pick the tools. I get to pick the tools and methods to achieve the outcome. Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it's
think
happened to
that's
me
fair.
before. We need
Yeah.
we need you to launch this thing in a month. Nothing. We had nothing. We had nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Took me 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. And so
What else did you get done in those 5 weeks?
me? Oh, nothing. Right? Me personally, nothing. I mean, because it takes that much focus, right?
Yeah,
Like, it
it's
takes that much
disruptive.
focus to
Yeah.
get done. Well,
Yep.
it's disruptive to me. Um,
Well,
did the
yeah.
organization get other stuff done? Sure, right? But like,
Hmm.
um, but it's you don't get, and then of course, then you got the other engineering teams that after we built this thing. Well, why did we do it this way? You were in the
Everybody
room,
has an
man.
opinion.
You were in the room. Like, you were in the room. You know why we're here, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, did you ever see the money? This is an old movie, and I'm going to super date myself here.
No,
It's like
yes, I've
Gung
seen it.
Ho. Did you ever see Gung
Oh,
Ho?
no, I thought you were going to say The Money Pit.
No, 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 no.
No. No, I've
Gung
never seen
Ho.
Gung
They
Ho.
were building, in the '80s. Everything. Japanese cars were being built here, and they built a factory here, and they were trying to get all these cars done. And at the end, they meet the quota, but like they're rolling cars off with no engines. And so, it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's a super dated movie. It probably doesn't
Mm.
stand up well now,
Mm-hmm.
but like I go back to this as like, you gotta know when to pick the battles, right?
Yeah.
And like if you're gonna ask me to do something like that, this is what it's gonna take, right? And this is where it
Yeah.
becomes a truly, I don't want to say finance driven conversation, but you are the finance person when you're buying a car, which is this is what it's going to take to do that. Do you really want to? And when most of the time when people realize what it's going to take, guess what happens? The outcomes
Oh
change,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Oh, well, we
Yeah.
don't need this, and this. Ah, yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
So key there is like don't commit. Don't commit right away and say you're going to go and do it. Like I think that happens with product people though because you don't want to disappoint. You feel like you're being
It
told you
happens with
have to do it and you
everybody.
have no, you know what I mean? Yeah, I guess, but like
It happens with
it
everybody.
just feels so heavy sometimes and you're like, "Oh, well, I guess my whole roadmap is is shit now." Like it's just yeah.
I
Don't
mean,
commit to
how
anything. Try to get all the information before you can commit or
I
before you
feel
commit.
like it's gotten more. I remember, remember when hackathons were all the craze.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like, I'd be sitting. I remember distinctly I was traveling with the VP of product and we were sponsoring a hackathon. I went with them because somebody couldn't go. And um, we're sitting there. And, I'm a fresh VP, right? VP of
Mm.
engineering. And he turns to me while we're there after seeing it for 24 hours, right? And he's like, they really can't build this stuff in 24 hours. I'm like, yeah, man, it's not like, no,
Yeah.
they can build, yes, you can build something that looks like what you want, that maybe has like a feature or two,
A prototype?
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Yeah.
I can get you something within 24 hours that kind of smells like, but it won't do all the things of
No.
of the quality you expect,
Yeah.
right? You don't get in 24 hours like the best possible, right, like solution ever, right?
Mm-mm.
You get
Yeah.
a thing that kind of works for your specific use case and that's it, right? And only that. Like if there's any negative cases, not going to work, right? It's going to fall over.
Yeah.
I do remember this is early Bitcoin. This dude built this app where he could like shuttle Bitcoins, like he was like doing this to money and just
Yeah.
giving away Bitcoins.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. This is back before they were really worth it. That's crazy, right? I think about that constantly. I'm
Wow.
like, that's crazy.
Wow. Mm.
So, anyways, yeah. I mean, like, it's. I think you have to commit. The don't commit. I would say,
Commit to getting an answer. Commit to finding out the
yeah.
information so you can come back and say what's doable. That's what you commit to.
I will
You
never.
don't
Yeah, I
commit to
will
doing
never.
the work.
Yeah, yeah. I will never. My hair is all messed up. Not happy with my hair. Um, I will never turn down, like, I don't know, I kind of love the chaos of these things because they're quite
Jeez.
difficult problems to solve.
Sure.
Um
Sure.
right, like that to me is it scratches
Yeah.
an itch of how hard these things are to solve, right? Because
Yeah.
like how do you do this, right? Like how do you do
Yeah.
this and get all the things you want to and I mean there's a little bit of a, I don't know. It's a little bit of a rush. Some people think I love it. I don't know if I love it. In the moment I do not love it. I'm proud that
No.
I'm
Yeah.
proud that I accomplished it at the end of the day, but like I don't love it. Um,
Yeah.
but I do.
It's
I
a
will
lot of
always take
energy.
them.
It's a lot of energy.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
sustain it for a burst of time.
Sure.
It's really hard to work that hard for long periods of time, right?
Yes.
And so, but I do.
No.
I do like it to me. I guess it's a for me it's a tangible impact.
Mhm.
right? You can see a
For sure.
tangible, quick impact, right? I know
Mhm.
somebody. I know somebody who used to work on project management for drilling rigs,
Mhm.
and she's like, "You never see anything done, right? Because they take so long, right,
Mm.
to get built. Is
Mhm.
you just never see the end because like it could be years,
Wow.
right?" And so to me, it's like this tangible impact of how you're impacting business and results and that kind of stuff, and it helps build, capital for when you have to do other things, or
Yes. It
you
is
get to say
very good for
no,
that.
right? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it does
Mhm.
build, that bank account up for when somebody comes,
Mhm.
well, I need you to do this in 4 weeks and you need to do it like this, where I'm like, no, we're not doing that,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so I wouldn't recommend it to everybody, but like there's
Man.
always a path, right? There's just like there's always a solution.
Yeah. There's
It's just
always
not
an
always
answer.
clear. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just not always clear.
Yeah.
So
My stomach's in knots thinking about it, but it's just,
I used to be like that.
I mean, I don't even want to say this
Are we
because I feel
knocking
like
on
I'm going
wood?
to
Are we
curse
knocking on
myself.
wood? Are we knocking on wood?
Yeah.
I'm knocking on
I
wood.
haven't had it
And
happen in a while, but like I'm just recalling like how I felt, you know, when it happened. And it's just, it can be, it can be a lot. It can be a lot. So, but it's not impossible. Not
all it
impossible.
comes down to is alignment and communication over and
Yeah.
over and over again.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Fall back to that.
Always.
Set yourself up with that, and it makes everything easier, a little bit easier.